Today I'm joined by Steven Price of the EIIL. First of all, thank you for being here. And Steve, would you mind introducing yourself, the EIIL and what you do, and what kind of partnership the EIIL and the EYCN have?
Okay, hi Patrick. Thank you very much for inviting me to this interview. I'm Steve Price. I'm Executive Director of the European Institute for Industrial Leadership. We are an industry association. Our members are large industries, multinational industries with European headquarters or parentage, tend to be based in Europe. They tend to be from the process sector, chemicals, plastic, but also some of those in the associated and adjacent industry sectors, so engineering companies, construction companies, and the likes. We've been going, say, for about 20 years. We help our members to attract, develop and retain the next generation talent. That means we run a program of research activities. We run a program of workshops that help develop their future talent. And then alumni from those programs get involved with our student member partners, and we create the conferences together from which we do our research. Okay? And the research that we get from there, we feed back into our member companies to help them with their attracting, retaining, developing the next generation talent. Okay? So you mentioned, the EYCN is one of our student organisation partners, junior partners we call them, just to differentiate them from the big multinationals, though some of you appear to be organised considerably better than some of the big multinationals that are our members. You are one amongst 6 organisations of similar sorts of sizes, generally in the scientific and engineering area.
Thanks a lot for this general overview. So one of the major outcomes of this collaboration between the EIIL, student organizations and the companies is the Future Leader Dialogue, which is created through the Future Leaders Survey. Could you explain the general approach of the survey and outline what it's all about?
Okay. We started 3.5 years ago. We pulled together representatives of our members, also alumni from our workshop programs, representing our members, and we brought together the representative from each of the student organisations and put them together and said, in 5 years' time, we're going to have something that's really useful, and what it will do is, on an annual basis, it will help students and companies better align the skills that they need and how they present themselves as organisations, as an industry, to make them more attractive to students. We had no idea what we were going to produce. We just wanted something that was an annual thing. And it's turned out to be more than just a report. We decided we would have a conference every year. This team of people decided that they would start with a survey. The survey would provide commentary from both sides, from the members' industry side and from the student side, with very similar questions for each side, and we create a survey that will get, if you like, 2 opinions on the same point. We provide from that survey, we take the highlights of that survey, we choose some speakers that we could interview during the conferences, and we would share the results of the survey. We did that in the Shedmore conference. We have good discussion groups during the conferences each year. They generate some messages, they generate some main themes, some main feelings, and we work on those as a group together during the year to help shape the next year's survey and the next year's conference. And so over the years, what we're aiming to do is to bring together misaligned views and try and get them closer and closer to each other by feeding back to each other after each cycle. Hope that makes sense.
Oh, that makes perfectly sense. If I may interject, what kind of feedback have you gotten from the companies in this regard from the FLD?
What feedback? So we aim for a couple of hundred people on each side of the divide to try and get a sample what they are. From the companies, what what we've had in the very first year, one of the companies took it away. They were absolutely clear. They learned so much from the Future Leaders Style survey that they decided to change and show some really big holes in their own expectations of what students thought that companies needed in terms of skills and the way that companies presented themselves. So they had a big initiative internally to try and raise this awareness. A second company not only did that, they then brought together representatives from each together in a focus group to try and help shape their own employee value proposition. So how they go out and present themselves to students in the various job fairs, etc. So there's been some direct result already from members.
All right. So speaking about skills, what skill do you believe is the most overrated from the viewpoint of applicants?
Okay. So most of our applicants are students from student organisations, so that might flavour some of these opinions. And actually, one of the things that is most overrated is that the students who are active in these student organisations think that they've learned some really useful skills, and so they think that those things are important. And they stress these extracurricular activities, what they've learned in student associations, as being really important. And there's a mismatch. There is a clear mismatch that the companies don't seem to recognise those same, not that they don't recognise the same skills, they don't seem to recognise those roles that the students are describing. So there is a definite mismatch. I don't think that that's a mismatch on the part of there's a problem with the answers. I think that the students are answering the way they feel and the way they believe and what they've experienced personally, which is they've developed their own skills. I think the companies underestimate the value of this, and part of that is because the students don't know how to explain themselves and describe the skills that they've learned. Part of it is companies' own experiences when they were at university, particularly if they weren't involved in a student organisation, and they seem to think that maybe it's all about party organising, etc. So there's a huge difference and an under-appreciation inside industry of the skills that you guys have learned in your student organisation.
So to me, this sounds like it's mostly a communication problem between students and the companies. Is there anything you can recommend us to do, or students to do in general? Certainly. I mean, the sort of underrepresenting, students are not good at representing themselves. Why? So imagine, you've done something to you, you've done it. So the achievement has been made. You're not as good at selling yourselves and saying what you actually did to achieve. Let's say you've organised a conference. Yeah. You think, oh, well, we just organised a conference. And it happened, and it was all great fun, and it went up. You don't realise that the skills that you use to organise that conference are all the same skills that you will need inside a large organisation to organise any sort of project that they have. You're scoping, you're defining, you're resourcing, you're bringing together people who can help you organise things. You even have the uncertainty of supplier and logistics to manage. You have the uncertainty of a market. How many people are going to turn up? What revenues are you going to get from the conferences that you bring in? There's the uncertainty of the mismatch of the sponsorship you can get, the revenues you can get, and what you can provide in terms of services. And you manage all of those, and you'll say, yeah, well, it's been managed every year. We just do it. I put myself down as I was project manager. You don't explain all those things that you wouldn't necessarily get in your first couple of years in a main big multinational. You might not even get that experience. So it's a really advanced skill and a good learning ground. And I think you need to tell more of the stories of what you've actually done and reference the skills you can do. I'm hesitating here, so you can break in with a question if you need to, but let me give you a second half of that answer. Sure, give me the second half.
Yeah, the second half might well be, and it's not just EYCN, but I think all of our student partner organisations don't really have the vocabulary that is recognised by industry to be able to describe the skills. And I think there's certainly some sort of collaborative project amongst student organisations, maybe with our help, maybe with some of our representatives from industry. There is something here that should be done that will give you a vocabulary to be able to describe different levels of skills, that you're learning in your student organisation. And if you can describe those roles, the skills that are required for each particular role, as a consumer of what's happening, you learn technically about your own subjects. That's the purpose of you all being together in a particular organisation. But then you might organise your own local university chapter. You might organise events for that level. You might organise on a national level. You might organise on a European or international level. At each level, you're using different skills and to a greater degree. And if you had a common model of vocabulary that you could use to describe this, then it would become a lot easier for companies to understand, I got a level 3 in project management in my student organisation, and they know what that meant.
Okay, that sounds like a great project for the future.
Well, if you do manage to get that off the ground, let us know. We'd be happy to join in and try and facilitate that.
That really sounds great. All right, so still sticking to skills. What skill and aspect do you think is the most underrated by students in general, and how could we communicate them better?
You're good at developing and talents. I think the communication, those what we talked about in terms of vocabulary, but maybe within that there's the storytelling. It's underrated, underrepresented. Storytelling about what you've done, what you've achieved, could be really useful. Maybe if you think about the use of a thing that maybe most people don't appreciate that they've got as a skill. But if you think about the way you use social media, you use it as a personal tool. Some of you have moved over into LinkedIn and maybe use it professionally, try and get your CV out around and network that way. But if you look now at the way companies are using social media, and not just companies putting out company posts on social media, but how do you make yourself visible within your company by your professionally acceptable social media posting? Yeah, this is going to be a skill for next generation. In fact, as one of the results of our Future Leaders Dialogue, we've said we're going to be looking into how we use technology in the workplace and how that makes it attractive. 10 years ago, we looked at leading the connected generation, and we looked at what would happen to young people who had never not known the internet, and what would the workplace be like for them. And we're looking now at a similar initiative saying 10 years on from that, the guys that came in who were new graduates 10 years ago are now the receiving managers of a new generation of people with a new set of technology skills that they are used to. So we're having a conference program now that's looking at those. And if you think about technology in the workplace, of course everybody's thinking about AI, etc. But the way that social media has changed, some of our senior members are really, really skillful at using social media to promote their company, to promote themselves within their company, to portray this is a position that I hold really strongly. So I've not only got a good CV, the same as everybody else, but now I'm also known as the guy who values learning, for example. Those things, I think, how you build your profile and maintain your profile alongside doing your day job. Everybody gets rewarded for doing the job well. But if you do your job well and something else, you're going to have a better career. So I think something that's underrated is, and probably not really well defined at all yet, is how you can be really skillful with social media as an employee.
That sounds great. Thanks a lot for that.
Okay.
All right. So this brings me to the last question of our short discussion. Which general advice do you have for early career researchers to transition into industry, to have a successful start to their career?
The thing that I didn't realize I had at the time when I started, and I have found growing throughout my career, I found now allows me to do the career I do, networking. Using your network, appreciating how to build a network. Essentially what this means is meeting people, being able to recognize, remember them, and understand how they might be valuable to you and how you might be valuable to them, and leaving them in such a way that the next time you meet them, it's as good as the first time. Okay? Just with those similar sorts of basic formula, you build a network, you maintain a network, you take the opportunities of all of the nudges that come through social media. I mean, LinkedIn tells you what's your work anniversary, what's the birthday. Make sure you just drop them a quick line saying hi. It keeps people visible, and then when you need to, you can draw on your network of people with different experiences to help you decide, what do I do next? And that can be, how do I solve the project that I've been given at work? Who do I need to know and talk to in the company? It could be, where's my career move going to come from next? Let me talk to a bunch of people outside of the company. How do I do things in the next thing? Let me talk to people outside the company to find out what they do so I can bring them into the company. Using skills so you're more than simply, this is the box you've been put in, this is the boss above you who is responsible for making sure you develop. You've got to keep your network so that you can do more than just what everybody else does. So building a network, using a network, maintaining a network, and using that network in every decision you take in your career, you will be better for it.
All right, thanks a lot. Is there anything you would like to tell our community? Anything we missed so far in this short interview?
I think the only thing I missed so far is actually to say right at the beginning of this, we're with you guys because we find student organisations provide skillful people who have got sufficient skills to be the next generation industry leaders. So if you find yourself on the edge of the organisation just being a consumer, you're watching this because it happens to be as part of, you're just consuming what the EYCN does, get interested, get enthusiastic about getting involved in organising these activities, and become an officer in the association and get your way to the top. You will develop skills that you will thank yourself for in the future.